everybody, it's Daily Distinction Time. So glad you are here. Thanks for joining me today. It is Tuesday. What is this? This is the eve of the eve of the eve of Christmas. So hope you're doing great. We have a very special show today because one of my best pals in the world is going to be joining us, and he's talking about story and the pain that comes when you don't have a story or you don't tell your story. So please join me in welcoming my awesome pal, Larry Winget. Yay!
And hey, your listeners are going, oh, damn, here he is again.
Can't get enough of Winget. That's the case here. So, man, I hope you're doing good. Ready for Christmas? Oh, Ernest is already sharing it. So here we go. The great Brian the Pit Bull is with the Master Distinction. Coffee in hand. There we go. Love it. Hey, Janice, great to see you. Curtis is a truck driver, Larry. He checks in. It's really cool. We never know where he's going to be. He was in Mesa yesterday. So
I've done a whole bunch in the trucking industry. Just got hired to do some more.
Oh, gotta love that. Gotta love that. So, Larry, you and I have talked about this privately a whole bunch, but thanks for taking time to join me today to talk about story and the power of story. But I want to talk about the pain of not having a story or not telling your story.
That's the most interesting part. You see, I believe people only spend money to solve a problem. They will only spend money to solve a problem if they feel it's a problem, and they will spend more money if the problem really hurts. And our job is to connect with people around the pain and their problem. I think the best connection we can ever have is through the power of story. Our other customer stories, testimonial is a story, but also our own story, our own company story. And I just think it's a shame that most companies don't know how to tell their story. Instead, they're telling, here's my solution, here's how you'll win, here's how you'll benefit from buying my crap. No, that's about you. That's not about them. And you got to connect with what's interesting to them. And nothing is more interesting than once upon a time.
Verily, verily, I say unto you, right? Hey, let's catch up here. We got a bunch of folks wanting to say hi to you, Larry. Here's Dale from Canada. They are at the cabin, I know. Paul Rosser checking in for the United Kingdom.
There you go.
Scott's here. We got good old Bill Garcia, great friend of ours. Here's another good friend, Charles Coachman, checking in. Mike is in Illinois, and he is a regular viewer. And, of course, we know Randall Reeder. So, never get too much of Winget.
Never get too much of Winget. Spread that around. Tell my wife.
Yeah. You took the words right out of my mouth. Can we get Rosemary? Can you send that to Rosemary? Larry, I want to jump back to what you said earlier because we sometimes tend to think that telling about our product or telling about our service is telling a story. And I could no more tell a story about that than I could tell a story about this pen. Stories are not about products. Stories are about people. And I think that's an area that a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of salespeople really miss the boat, don't you?
Well, we've done such a disservice in the training industry for so long.
Great point.
Telling people it was features and benefits. You've made this point 1,000 times, much better than I ever will. Your customer knows your features and benefits better than you do. They can Google it, and that's the way it works. Here's what I think is the most powerful part of telling that story is it transcends features and benefits, which is not why people buy any longer.
Right.
People buy based on trust. The number one reason people don't buy is lack of trust. The reason people pick you over someone else is I trust you to be on my side to solve the problem at a price I'm willing to pay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty simple. And the way you build trust, I believe, is through story. So if you don't tell your story, you're doing yourself a disservice. You're shooting yourself in the foot because they understand what you sell. They don't always know who you are and what you believe and what you stand for. Who you are, what you believe, and what you stand for is becoming more and more important in the marketplace, both in attracting good employees as well as attracting well-paying customers. Damn, that was good.
That was really good. That's brilliance right there. Hey, by the way, Curtis says that he has attended programs, so that's how he got introduced to that. So that's very cool. And Ernest is checking in from Lubbock. So, you said something I've never thought of this. It just struck me. We talk so much in sales about making a great impression, or in customer experience about making a great impression. And I don't know why, but you triggered that. I was thinking of the Chinese theater in Hollywood, and they put their hands in the cement and they make an impression. That's visual. That's something people can go by and see. Impression was making when the king would put the seal on the paper and it would make an impression into the paper, and that's where that word came from. And that's visual. And stories are word pictures. When you tell a great story, what do people often say? Oh, I see. I get the picture. And we know
I see what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. I see what you're saying, and the mind remembers pictures by some things I've read, 8 to 12 times more effectively than it remembers the words that go with it. You remember the picture of Washington crossing the Delaware, but when I say what's the date that happened, nobody knows. Nobody remembers. But we sure remember the image. And the stories that you tell create these images that people remember and connect, and the connection builds the trust you were talking about.
For years, Scotty, you remember, you've known me forever since I first started, but for you, way too long and know way too much. But when I first started, I told 3 stories about my childhood heroes. And one of the ones I talked about, and I've got signed, autographed movie pictures and pictures of him all over my house here, was the Lone Ranger. And I would always talk about how the Lone Ranger always left something. What he always left was a silver bullet that was a symbol of what he stood for, believed, and was all about. A silver bullet that, even though he was long gone, that stayed behind as a representation of him. Now, there was a whole story that went with the silver bullet and where it came from and all of that. But that symbol of what we leave behind, that's not only a symbol of what we leave behind. Many times the story, that symbol, precedes us.
Yes.
And it does completely represent us. It's not the fact that the Lone Ranger came in and did this, or you come in and solve this problem. It's the story of the problem and the solution and how they did it that makes it fascinating and memorable and shareable.
Boy, that is really significant. I never thought of that in that way before. It's not just the silver bullet, it's the story that the silver bullet represented that made it enduring. Otherwise, you'd go, hey, I got a piece of silver, let me go sell it, or whatever. You wouldn't think of doing that, because the story that was behind the silver that was left. Hey, Brian's got a question here, Larry. He says, in your opinion, what holds people back from committing to be a better storyteller?
I've worked with a whole bunch of people who want to be speakers and grow up and do what I do right now. And what they are most reluctant about, it falls on 2 sides. They don't believe their story is interesting. It's a good thing because it isn't. Because most people never figure out how to make their story interesting, because they make their story about them. I've never told a story about me. I tell you your story through my experience. Boy, that's a clear distinction on the difference between bad storytelling and good storytelling. A great speaker will go on stage. A great salesperson will tell you your own story through their experience. The salesperson might tell you your own story through the experience of a person who already bought. But it's telling you your story. My story's not interesting. I tell people, nobody gives a damn about you. They don't care about you. They care about them. How do I connect with them about what they are going through based on what I've been through, my research and my experience? And that's why most people don't commit to becoming any better. One, they think they're not interesting, and that's usually true, or they think they're fascinating. And that is the kiss of death. To believe that you're fascinating is the kiss of death in storytelling.
Good grief, is it ever? Eric,
Let's make a list, Scott.
Yeah, no kidding. I was already going down to the Your blunt and sincere message from the NSA platform 2 decades ago rings fresh in my head. Oh, thank you. Well, you're very kind to say that, Eric, and it's great hearing from you, man. I hope things are good with you. Carlos is here. Good to see Carlos as always. Hey, Larry, great to see you.
Yeah.
Paul saying, so story can drag you up out of the sea of sameness. Yes.
And that's said by a guy who is the best bourbon collection outside of me. Is Paul Rosser.
Maybe we can just say just outside the United States. Paul's in the UK. Larry, so is storytelling something that I think there are people that would look at you or maybe at me and say, oh, but you guys were born storytellers.
Double.
Yeah, that's what I say.
Yeah. It is a skill that can be learned. And it's a skill that must be learned, I believe, more now than ever. People are more interested now in story because no matter what it is you sell, I can find it in a better way, cheaper. I'm just telling you I can. I don't care what it is you sell. I can find it better, cheaper. So until we learn to, I'm going to steal your words and tee it up for you at the same time, create distinction by knowing what our story is and being able to communicate that story. It goes back to what Paul just said. You are lost in a sea of sameness. And then you become a commodity and you can't win long term. You win maybe a couple of times today, but you can't win long term.
Yeah, and the only thing I have to do, like you said earlier, that if I'm a commodity, then the only thing that my competitor has to do is cut the price a penny. I mean, it's easy. Well,
this idea that I have a gift of gab or this gift of storytelling. Yes, some people can tell a story a little better, but I told a story about Radio Shack for 20 years on stage. It got great reactions. And about the time Radio Shack went out of business and it didn't make any sense for me to tell the story anymore, I finally got it right. You know how you tell a story for years and years and years and you go, oh, there it was. But that takes analysis and thinking and what's the goal of the story? And that's a skill, a learned skill.
It really is. And the willingness to keep revising and updating. I mean, when I talk about, the program we're going to be doing on storytelling, I'm sure there are people who think, well, I've already got a story. Well, your story can continually be refined, just like you continued to refine and improve the Radio Shack story. Goodness only knows you've seen the Taxi Terry story evolve and change, that I tell over the years. Because there's a story I tell at the beginning of the speech, old joke, but just one I tell early. And, I'm from Crothersville, Indiana, population 1,500, never changes size. Every time a baby's born, a man leaves town. Gets a little chuckle. And a woman on the front row said, "Is that why you're here?" Wow. Great line. So then that became a part of that little story that afterwards I say, every time a baby's born, a man leaves town, people chuckle. I go, but that's not why I'm here. And that gets a bigger laugh than the original one. But there is a technique that we're going to talk about called layering and how you can layer on top of what you think is the best line of the story to even make your story better. We're talking about technical stuff now, and part of why Larry's here is he's so kind to support the program that I'm doing on December the 30th. It's called Distinctive Story. We're going to spend several hours on that day talking to you about what it takes to create your story and how you tell it more effectively and what it takes to create a story that will really make you stand out in the marketplace. Just go to distinctivestory.com. All the information is there, and man, I'd love to have you be a part of that. Distinctivestory.com. Hey, got a couple comments. Let's catch up on.
Scotty, I'm going to jump in here, and I'm not meaning to cut you off on your comments. I heard you do this in a 1-hour session at the Ultimate Business Summit. Was it 3 or 2 years ago? It was the last time we were all alive.
Yeah, 2 years.
And we're still alive. And I've been listening to you drone on for 30 years, and you've been listening to me. I know you. I could tell Taxi Terry. You could tell the Radio Shack story. You told me a story one day. I laughed my butt off, and you said, "Larry, it's your story." And I went, "Oh, I forgot." But I've heard your stuff, and I heard you do that hour on storytelling, and I was blown away. I was just blown away. It's the best hour I've ever seen you do. And I think people need to realize how important that is. That's why I totally support what you're doing here. It's that good, folks. It's that good.
Yeah, that means the world, because I know you wouldn't say it. Larry, as you probably guessed, is not one to hand out or endorse things that he doesn't believe in. So, hey, Brian, thank you very much. Brian's just signed up for that. So I appreciate that. I appreciate that greatly. Ernest, thank you for buying the Taxi Terry book, because it's about the story. Yeah. So, what was the story about Radio Shack?
Too long to tell. However, it is available at LarryWinget.com. If you just go back and buy the oldest thing that I sell on there, some audio, it'll be on there.
It's on there, yeah. Hey, Bruce has got a question. Do you have a short go-to story for all seasons? And I think that's part of what we would call a signature story, right?
Yeah, I do. I like stories as a speaker, and you do too, Scott, that if it's a leadership meeting, a sales meeting, a meeting around customer service, or reading, it doesn't matter what the meeting is about, that story has the flexibility, and I've got the skill, after having told it and put a lot of thought in it, to make that story do a lot of things.
Yeah.
Now, that's a speaker telling a story who can make one story do a lot of things. See, I think I think a business can do that too.
Yeah.
I was doing some coaching this morning with a chimney sweep company. And he was at a person's house who had just moved here from Germany, where in Germany is the law to have your chimney inspected every single year.
I didn't know that.
Well, he didn't either. And I said, what a story I would use every single time I went out. Every time I went out and sold service, I'd say, in some countries, it's a law because it's that important. And I told him how to tell that story. We are surrounded by information that make fascinating stories that you can make a sales message with, a service message with, a maintenance contract message with this story. You can do so much with a story like that, an example like that.
I want to share a couple here. Susan, thank you very much for that. She's going to find the Radio Shack tale and Taxi Terry and my hurt story about crashing the rental car. I appreciate that. And our great friend, Randy Pennington. Randy, thank you very much. Well, you're right in there, pal. I appreciate it. Thank you. So, well, Larry, let's wrap it up. I want to remind folks again, if they want to be a part of the program, just go to distinctivestory.com. It's coming up a week from tomorrow, and you'll get all the information and details there. I look forward to having you there. But Larry, any last words on the importance of story?
I think you have to convince yourself how you will be hurt if you don't know your story.
Yeah.
And the competition knows theirs. They're going to win. Identify the pain that you're going to suffer by not knowing your own story. And frankly, you can't compete with somebody who knows their story, knows how to tell it, knows how to connect around story, knows how to connect with people about being people. And if you don't learn how to do that, you've shot yourself in the foot for your own success, because other people are going to start to see how important and relevant this topic really is.
You bet. Can't thank you enough, my friend. I appreciate it.
Always good to see you, bud.
Same here, man. You're the best. Thanks to Larry Winget. Appreciate him being here. And please check out distinctivestory.com. I hope you join us. It's going to be great. Hey, here's Dan Weltman. Good to see you. Robert Brooker is in the house. That guy named Scott. I love it, Robert. Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for watching Daily Distinction today. Go to Distinctive Stories and sign up. Register. Love to have you be a part of our event. Carlos, so glad to see that. Thank you. Glad you're joining us. I think you're going to enjoy it with the important work that you do. I just think what you do is so important in helping people, and the more people you can help, the better off everyone's going to be. So thank you for that. Thank you for watching Daily Distinction today. I'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow at the same time. We'll have our Christmas Eve show coming up tomorrow. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you then.